Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, fresh from the rundown, Craig DeLuz. Craig, thanks for tagging along today, man.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here as always, sir.
We got a lot of stuff to get to today, and getting social media hooked up as we speak. First thing I want to talk about is a viewer brought this to my attention yesterday. There is a shelter in, let me pull that story back up. It's in California. I'm trying to find the exact city. In Thousand Oaks, California. It's owned by a private owner, but a pet shelter. The Shelter Hope Pet Shop in Thousand Oaks. If you are an NRA member or if you do not support gun control, you are not going to be getting a pet from them. And they say they will grill you beforehand, and if you in any way, shape, or form support the right to keep and bear arms, you're not getting a pet.
Well, you know what? I hope for the animal's sake that they are a no-kill shelter. Because you're going to see a lot of people, in particular people who like dogs. a lot of gun owners like dogs, right? Yes. And if that's how they are, then you know what? That's fine. As was noted in the article that's there at Truth About Guns, you have a freedom of association. You can decide who you want to do business with and who you don't want to do business with based on their political leanings. I find it odd that you have people who don't want to do business with people who believe in the fundamental right to keep and bear arms, who believe in exercising a constitutionally enumerated right. But that's fine. But I'm also hoping that this publicity will alert every single one of their donors who is a gun owner and who believes that they're full of a bunch of hooey, and that they stop donating to. They need to learn that you have a right to exercise your freedom of speech. You do you. But understand that other people have the exact right to do the same. And you don't have a right to their donations. You don't have a right to them coming and wanting to adopt your pets. So when people decide that they don't want to deal with you because of your bigotry, well, then I hope you accept the consequences.
Absolutely. Susan and I have two shelter dogs, and we have two shelter cats. We very much believe in pet rescue. And I'm very grateful that the shelter we deal with here doesn't have any political leanings they let out to the public.
Right. Well, as well it shouldn't. Some of these nonprofits, especially ones like this, they're going to learn real quick the whole go woke, go broke. They're going to learn that when you start mixing politics into your business and your business model and business communications, that you are going to lose customers. Because here's the thing, is that what people don't realize is, gun owners are all types. They don't realize the number of people that they've probably already done business with, that they might be doing business with, or that are around them that actually believe in the Second Amendment. The gun lobby is not the gun industry. There's a difference between the two. And the gun lobby is a bunch of people you may or may not know. So just be careful when you decide you want to, like I said, when you want to poke the bear may be bigger than you thought.
Well, and I do not know where Thousand Oaks is. I know it's kind of in the Los Angeles area. I do not know what county it's in.
Yeah, so Thousand Oaks it's Southern California. I'm not sure I think it's in Ventura County, but it's basically the Southern California, Los Angeles area.
Okay. Ventura County, I know if it were farther inland like Imperial County, I know Imperial County in California is basically shall issue.
Yes. No. Ventura County, not so much.
Okay. Well, I would.
It ain't LA County, but it ain't Ventura County. I would
imagine
it ain't LA County, but it ain't Imperial.
I would imagine some of her customers probably in the past have had concealed carry permits, and there's a good chance that they were carrying when they got their pets.
There's no doubt that there probably were, and who knows? That may not be the case any longer.
Yeah, yeah, that that brings up the age-old question, and what do you do if somebody says they don't want they have a no gun sign up? I mean, there are two schools of thought. Concealed means concealed, and the one I follow is, hey, they don't want my money. I'm going to grant them that privilege of not having my money. I'll find a competitor that wants my money. I guess if I were in the Thousand Oaks area, I would find another place to get a shelter pet. I'm sure there's got to be more than just one shelter in Thousand Oaks, California.
Well, I would tend to agree with you, because here's the thing: they're probably going to take your money and spend it on something, on efforts, and give it to people who are not necessarily going to be consistent with your values. So, how about we not reward them by giving them money?
Yeah,
especially if you have an alternative.
I absolutely agree on that. Let me go see if we've gotten comments. Just George Geller checking in. Hey, George. Let's go ahead, Craig. We'll move on to our next. The next story I wanted to talk about today was the American Thinker. This one by Andrea Widberg. This is just we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the bullet. They're going over again on this one the supposed agreement that, again, there's still, even today, there's no bill introduced in the Senate. They're going over the supposed agreement they have between the 10 rhinos and 10 Democrats that are in the Senate. And they list a group of things they've agreed on: funding for school safety resources. Now, if they actually use that for hardening the school as a target, if they use that as for, steel doors and real locking mechanisms, and maybe, I don't know, putting on-duty deputies in as school resource officers, hey, that sounds great to me. But if they use it for camera systems, and the only thing a camera system is, it'll show you what happened. That's the only darn thing a camera system is good for. If they use it for things like that, it's not going to do a damn bit of good.
Well, no, and quite frankly, when you do start getting into hardening schools, you honestly have to consider allowing teachers with concealed carry permits to be able to carry on campus. There is no doubt that the sooner that an active shooter engages with someone with a firearm, the likelihood of the next person dying goes down, right? Because we know that in many cases they run, in many cases they hide, they commit suicide. In many cases they picked the targets that they picked because they're looking for as little resistance as possible. So groups like FASTER need to be getting funding. They need to be looking at passing laws to allow them to be able to do what they do in other states. And once again, to debunk what I know most of the people watching this show already know, we're not talking about giving every teacher a gun or giving teachers guns who don't want them. We're talking about individuals who've already expressed a desire to be able to defend themselves and others. They've already gone through the process of getting a concealed carry permit. They've already gone through training. Now this would just give them the opportunity to go through training to specifically be able to address issues at the school site where they are, to be able to have them work side by side with law enforcement so that they can be that first responder till law enforcement shows up.
Yeah, and specifically the FASTER program. I know several people that have been through the FASTER program, and to a person, they have told me that it's an excellent program and eye-opening. And these are people that have been through training before, and I had an opportunity, because of my health I couldn't go, but I had an opportunity to attend last year. I wish I could have went, and I'm hoping I can get an opportunity next year. So the next category that I wanted to talk to you about, and this one I'm still. By
the way, if I could just touch one thing on that particular the proposal.
Yeah.
Folks, the one thing you have to be careful of is these people who are looking at giving away, who are looking at caving on red flag laws.
Yes.
Right? This is vitally important because, like, a lot of them are holding up the Florida red flag law as a model, and it's not a model. Because any law that allows you and that allows an ex parte hearing, means you're not there, you don't know about it, but allows your rights to be taken away without you having the opportunity, before you have the opportunity to face your accuser and defend yourself. That is not due process. It is not. The only entity that I've seen that has actually introduced a piece of legislation, a red flag law, that did give you that due process was Arizona, and theirs didn't pass. So that's the only one that I've seen that offers that. So to allow other people to push that idea and say, oh yeah, well, it's due process. No, if you've taken away my rights and taken away my guns before I get to defend myself, then no, I'm sorry, that's not due process.
You're absolutely right. One that intrigued me, and I still don't know how I feel about it: extending background checks to juvenile criminal justice records and mental health records for buyers under 21. So if you're 18, 19, 20, the FBI will now, when you fill in your federal 4473, be able to look at your juvenile, mental health, and criminal record to include that in your background check. Part of me says, well, okay. Part of me says, that's one step. The next step is, well, if you're 35, they're going to be looking at what you're doing when you were 14 years old. At some point, that does need to be sealed.
Well, okay, so here's where I will say, if there's something that is included in that is a prohibiting offense, I mean, here's the thing, and we'll just talk about just with background checks, period. The real issue is people would probably have less of an issue with a background check if, okay, there's a list of, if you've committed these offenses, right, or these things are in existence, then you can't buy a gun. And you went in, you showed them your ID, they look it up, Craig DeLuz is not on that list, here's your gun. Right? If that's how it worked. But the problem is they retain the information. They're doing a lot more than just that, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like with a credit card check where they run your card, it's approved or it's not approved. It's just not like that. The problem is that the background checks are turning into a backhanded way of registering firearms so that they know who's bought guns and what guns that they bought. That's what they want. That's what they want a background check for. I do believe one of the challenges we've had is when it comes to the mental health aspect of, if there was at least just a way to find out if someone has been, like for example, and I don't know about other states, but in California, if you've been involuntarily committed for a 72-hour hold, you lose your right to own a gun for, I think it's 10 years. Now, you can always, before that, petition to get your rights back. But at least we know there's a way, there's something that is there. I don't know. I definitely think, and I'll once again, I'll just use as an example, the Buffalo shooter who decided, who said in a paper, I am going to shoot up my high school graduation. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how in an era of universal background checks that guy got a gun.
Well, and
Let's go back
to, I was reminded of this last night on Polite Society. Go back to the guy in Colorado when the Batman movie was out, dressed up in a costume, went in the theater and shot up the theater, killed a bunch of people in the theater. He had an entire manifesto. He wrote it up. He gave it to his shrink. The shrink read it, and because of what he thought was a HIPAA law, he did nothing about it. Even though he was a person who was required to report. You cannot, and this brings me to another point. We are never going to legislate safety.
No.
The only way you can assure your own safety is by making sure you yourself can protect yourself. The only way to reasonably assume that is to be armed everywhere you go.
Well, and you just made the exact point. The fact is, and you know the saying, cops are often minutes away when seconds matter. Uh-huh. And that's not a knock on law enforcement. It's a recognition of reality that they cannot be everywhere. And the fact that they can show up in so many places within minutes is phenomenal and speaks to their training and their tactics. But the problem is you take, for example, I was reading an article that talked about Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook took a total of 4 minutes. Now, how exactly are you supposed to, is law enforcement from the first shot to the last shot supposed to be there within enough time to protect those children? Now, imagine if there had been multiple adults there with a firearm able to help defend those children. Worst case scenario, they could have slowed him down.
Yes. Absolutely. I want to go back to red flag laws because we got a comment about it. Spartan6 over on the YouTube side says a false accusation under red flag laws should result in the false accusers having to serve 10 years in prison. I don't know about 10 years, but there should be a criminal penalty.
Oh yeah, most definitely. The problem is that in a lot of these cases they wouldn't get penalized because they're going to say, well, because think about it. If the judge agreed, then the judge must think that there's something reasonable about it. The judge is not going to say that what they said was quote unquote false. It's just we measured it differently, right? It is incredibly subjective. And if you have anti-gun judges, you're going to have judges who are going to more often favor taking of firearms. And the worst part is that let's imagine that this person really is a danger to themselves or others. Now think about this. You've then told law enforcement this guy is a danger to himself or others and he has guns. Go take his guns. Now, when those cops show up at his door, once again, and as I always say, they didn't show up with candies and flowers, right? Nope. They came ready for engagement. You don't think if he actually is a danger to himself or others, you don't think that doesn't increase the likelihood that he could be set off?
Well, and let's take it one step further than that. Let's say they safely, to themselves and to him, are able to take his firearms away. Mm-hmm. And they leave him free to roam. They're going to leave his car keys they're going to leave the keys to the pickup truck. They're going to leave the gasoline can in the garage. They're going to leave they're going to leave the axe in the garage. They're going to leave all kinds of things around that he can still use to do all kinds of damage. They're not dealing with the problem. They're dealing with a tool, and just one of the tools.
Well, and they talk a lot about, this is about mental health. Notice nowhere in there is there any part of the evaluation done by a mental health professional. Mm-mm. Nowhere in there is there any assistance, mental health assistance for the individual. Nowhere. So mental health has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a gun grab, is what it is.
And that's, by the way, that's how they measure their success. How many guns have we confiscated? And in California, they're pushing to make changes to the law and provide additional funding because guess what they want to do? They want to increase the number of guns that they can take from people. And that's their only measure of success.
Well, and one of the things they want to do is they want to close the boyfriend loophole. The explanation I've heard is they want to increase the number of people that can report for a red flag. If you've ever dated somebody, and I said this on yesterday's show, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I had an adventurous dating life, and there are some very young ladies then that are my age ladies now and younger and older that I don't know their political persuasion, but I'm fairly certain that if they're as nuts now as they were then, that they would have no problem calling up the sheriff's office and saying, that Lathrop guy is nuts. I dated him. You need to go take his guns away.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how it works. And when they initially introduced it in California, that's how it was. It was like literally anybody. Now, anybody that you work with. So let's say, for example, you work for the University of California, which has tens of thousands of employees across the state. you can seek a red flag order against a fellow coworker.
Or you work for something like Kaiser Permanente Medical, who
Right.
has, again, a huge... I used to work for Kaiser Permanente when I lived in California. Huge employee base all throughout Southern California and Arizona and Southern Nevada and other places. And do you think there are some Karens that work there?
I'm sure that there are at least a few.
Yeah. Let's
Not
see.
saying, just saying.
Let's let's head off to the next one. The next one I have up is by my boss, or one of my bosses, Dave Workman, and it looks like there are more people jumping on the Senate bandwagon now that there are 10 rhinos that joined with 10 Democrats to come up with this framework of what they want to push. It looks like there are some more coming out of the woodwork. And that's why I want to put this up. U.S. Capitol Switchboard, 202-224-3121. Schumer, immediately, as soon as this came out, he said, well, this is a good first step. Folks, it is critical that we don't let them take a first step. The first step should be the repeal of the restriction on machine guns that were manufactured after 1984. That is the last gun control that effectively that really went through. Then we can walk back to the Gun Control Act of 1968. Then we can go, we'll start walking them backwards from there. But we need to be getting our rights back, not giving more up. And that phone number is the first place we start.
Well, and that's, ultimately what happens is whenever there's compromise, it's never, okay, we're going to give you something and you'll get something. It's never, okay, how about universal background checks for national concealed carry reciprocity, right? I'm not advocating for that as a trade, but at least we're getting something for giving something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. The way it always works is this. It's always, okay, we're going to take away your rights. Now let's debate how much, right? It's like, we're going to cut off your fingers. We want to cut off 10. You don't want us to cut off any. So our compromise will be, we'll only cut off 5. That's how, or in this case, what they'll do is, and this is what makes me mad with Republicans, is they'll negotiate away our right to keep and bear arms in order to get something else. I'm sorry, that may be a compromise for that Republican politician. That is not a compromise for the people. It's not a compromise for gun owners. It's not a compromise for my constitutional rights. It's you taking away my rights is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I want to get this one up here real fast. And this is the quote, of course, from Ben Franklin, those who will surrender essential liberty for temporary safety deserve neither and will soon lose both. Craig, what you just said reminded me of a conversation. I'm not going to name the person, but highly placed in the NRA. And I do mean highly placed. Not Wayne LaPierre, but not far. And the conversation was shortly after bump stocks happened. And it was put like this. Well, we were going to get assault weapon ban full across all the way. They were going to go away. AR-15, AK-47, everything. We settled. We got them talked down to bump stocks. I'm not buying that for a half a second.
No, not at all. Because in the end, Donald Trump would have had to sign it. And if Donald Trump, you like him, hate him, however you feel about him, he would have lost. I mean, let's be real. It was the believers in the Second Amendment and people who believe and wanted to have him put in place justices who would protect the Second Amendment. That's what made the difference for him getting elected. I don't see him. He don't always say the right things, but he almost generally almost always does the right things. And I wouldn't see him signing something like that.
Yeah. The man didn't, well, He had mean tweets, but he did know how to run a country. Let's get this one in here real quick. Michael over on the Facebook side, I was recently told by an NRA instructor, if you're fortunate enough to get a New York City CCW, just about everywhere you're standing in Manhattan is a gun-free zone. I know up until recently, subways were not a gun-free zone. They may be now.
I know. Yeah. Well, I know that. I do know that there has been proposed legislation in New York that would, or ordinances that I don't know if they passed yet, but yeah, it literally almost made every place in New York a place where even if you had concealed carry, you would not be able to carry. I don't know if it passed. If they did, it's relatively recently. I mean, but let's just be honest. You know, if people are going to carry in New York, if people believe they need to carry, a good chunk of them are going to carry, whether it's legal or not, because, well, they're not stupid.
Yes. One more comment here real quick. Schumer, the guy with taxpayer-funded 24/7 armed security, wants to take away my guns? Believe it or not, George, yep.
I know. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Note the sarcasm, please, George.
Yeah. A great one. This is a great one, and especially as it applies to red flag laws. Roderick from Facebook side says, "Why isn't California subject to Section 1 of the 14th Amendment? Nor shall any state deprive any person of property without due process of law."
Because see, they believe that because there was a trial, even though it was ex parte and you didn't get to be there, they are arguing that is then due process, and then they take your rights. First, they take your guns, then they take your rights, then they take your guns, and then because within 21 days you now actually get to go before a judge. To them, that's due process. Now, let's ignore the fact that you may or may not even get to face your accuser. So you may not even get to address what it was that person said or who that person was. Let's ignore the fact, right, that because it's a civil offense, it's a civil proceeding, not a criminal proceeding, you aren't even guaranteed counsel. And by the way, you're not told what standard you have to meet. You're not told, do I need to go see a psychiatrist and get a clean bill of health? Do I just need to come talk to the judge? No one tells you. Right? No one tells you how you get your rights back. And then finally, once you get your rights back, there's no guarantee that you get your guns back. 80% of the people in California who had their rights taken, and at their 21-day trial, or I'll call it a trial, when they were able to go before a judge, it was deemed that they were not a danger to themselves or others. Those people, 80% of them never got their guns back.
All right, last story we're going to cover today, because we're quickly approaching the bottom of the hour. This is off ABC 7 out of Chicago. Chicago shootings, 31 shot, 6 fatally in weekend violence. How is that possible? Chicago is one of the gun control capitals in the nation, man. People don't have guns in Chicago.
It sounds like there was a slow weekend in Chicago. Must not have been a holiday weekend. Father's Day weekend is coming up. I'm sure their numbers will be up.
Yeah, the more you make gun-free zones, the more gun restrictions you put in, the more people are killed by violence.
Well, I will just say this, and I think it fits the title of your other podcast, the Polite Society. Polite Society. Well, an armed society makes for a polite society.
Yes. Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to have to shut this down. We're getting very close to our 30 minutes here. Craig, on our way out, would you please remind everybody about the rundown and what you and Mike do?
Yes, so I'm come from the left coast, the west coast. Behind the Iron Curtain, we call the Sierras. Mike comes from the East Coast, from Florida, from the Gunshine State, and we talk about 2A news and conservative views every Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Check us out on YouTube or on Facebook or on OpsLens, or you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. And everybody, I would encourage you to listen tomorrow, tune in live tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. I do believe we're probably getting a decision from the Supreme Court tomorrow. If that happens, if the Bruen decision falls tomorrow, Alex Uli will be joining us. And either way, whether or not a decision from Bruen comes tomorrow, we will have, my brain is in freeze mode, I'm sorry. We'll have a Charlie Cook, Riding Shotgun with Charlie, will be joining us. So, but do come join us 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. That's it for us today. Thanks for watching, everybody.